Time now on the programme to bring you our focus report, and today we're heading to South Sudan. After 5 years of conflict that's displaced millions of people there, there's now hope a new era is in sight. A ceasefire deal was signed in September and exiled leader Riek Machar returned to the country 1 month later. Our reporters there ask, is now peacetime arriving to the world's youngest nation?
It's a scene that was unimaginable just a few weeks ago. A South Sudanese policeman dancing with the women of Juba's IDP camp. Hundreds of people joined the celebration with the military at this checkpoint, next to a heavily fortified UN-protected area where some 39,000 people live. Since the beginning of the Civil War, families here have lived in fear of the army.
It's the first time I've dared to come here. I was always afraid. Until now, they scared us.
Residents are afraid of the soldiers who control their comings and goings. They accuse them of regularly committing rape, torture, and murder, and say their crimes go unpunished. But on this day, the army is showing another side.
I want to thank you for coming to our military camp. As you heard yesterday, peace was brought to us by President Salva Kiir and Riek Machar. They brought it to us, and it will be true and real peace.
The peace he's talking about was celebrated the day before in Juba by several East African heads of state and President Kiir. The headline was the symbolic return of the ex-vice president and rebel leader Riek Machar. Several thousand South Sudanese attended the celebrations. Police filled the streets, wary of potential attacks. But Riek Machar's 2016 return to the country remains a fresh memory. 2 months after his arrival in the capital last time, and despite similar peace agreements, the war kicked off again in Juba. But when President Kiir takes the stage, his tone is conciliatory.
Today marks the end of the war. And all the opposition leaders who signed the agreement have fulfilled each other. And we collectively decided to move this country forward.
The war they're calling off has already created 2.5 million refugees, with almost as many internally displaced and hundreds of thousands dead. In this UN-protected camp, living conditions are appalling. Residents here lack food and basic hygienic conditions. After arriving at the beginning of the conflict, Regina opened a small restaurant to try to make money to survive.
Look at this place. You can't call this a restaurant or a decent place, but when you have to deal with problems, there's no choice but to adapt, to act as if everything was fine. It's the only way to keep living.
She no longer wants to raise her children trapped behind barbed wire. But it's out of the question to leave. She'll believe in the peace agreement when she can finally go home.
I arrived here 5 years ago, soon it'll be 6. And since then, nothing has changed. We, the people of the camp, don't believe in this peace. There have already been agreements signed in the past, and they've all failed.
Since the September 12th signing of the most recent agreement, fighting has broken out in several parts of the country. While less widespread than before, several have been killed in the clashes. This health center in Juba is for amputees, and like this former soldier, most patients here were shot or wounded by explosives. But this kind of injury is less common these days.
Some few cases come as a result when there is an outbreak of war, maybe between the rebels and the government in some places, but not too much compared to the other years previously.
For now, it's impossible to say whether it's a simple lull in the fighting or if the ceasefire will hold and the number of wounded will continue to decrease. While waiting for the peace accord to come to fruition, ordinary citizens are mobilizing to try to change their own country. At Juba's only cultural center, there's an open party for young people. The aim of the evening is to help them understand that peace isn't the work of the military alone.
We, the youth, we are the leaders of tomorrow. We know what this country needs. So we should not always focus to the leaders up there. But we as the youth, the peace has to come from us so that it has to go through to all the people in the country.
Hopes are high that the peace agreement will finally lead to a permanent end to the war. But it will take time to move on from this ethnic conflict, as learned hatred and the desire to settle scores are still strong in the world's youngest country.